So it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 11 and compare it against the iPhone XS Max and see how both of these iPhones compare in 2025. Now, this is probably one of the most popular comparisons I've ever done. At least about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when the iPhone 11 came out, I compared these two iPhones, and a lot of people were very curious to see how these two phones compare. I think now, still to this day, a lot of people are curious to see how these two iPhones compare, which may seem random, but there's a lot of similarities and a lot of flip-flopping going on between both as well. So we'll take a look at both of these throughout this whole entire video, but if at any point you want to pick up either one of these iPhones, links will be down in the description below for some iPhones that I would recommend buying this year. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPhone 11 and XS Max, the iPhone XS Max came out back in 2018, and on the front side of this particular iPhone, you were getting a 6.5-inch Super Retina OLED display. So this type of panel and this type of device does look still pretty decent. The panel itself, it doesn't get that bright, right? It's not the brightest panel of all time, but it still is like a pretty good looking display. And I do think if you were going to go through and like pick up a device, this thing does look pretty solid for the most part. You're getting the notch up top, which is nice. You're getting your like thin bezel a little bit, but it's an OLED display and it still looks pretty good for the most part. The iPhone 11, you're getting a smaller 6.1-inch Liquid Retina IPS LCD panel on this particular device. So this device is a little bit smaller, but the panel itself just isn't as good. This panel is significantly lower resolution. It's just, an IPS panel. It just doesn't really look that great. So, I think it looks okay, but it definitely has shown its age now. But the XS Max, without a doubt, definitely looks far better than something like the iPhone 11. Both are giving you this curved side with the lightning ports at the bottom, which could be a nice thing depending on how you're looking at it. So you could go through and like get that type of capability right there, which again is kind of a nice thing. You're also still going through and maintaining basically like pretty good build qualities even on the back. Both of these are giving you glass backs on the back of both these phones, which is really nice to have. You're getting a dual camera setup on the backside too, which is another really nice thing. And, overall, you're getting a lot of similarities, right? Dual camera setups on both. You're getting wireless charging, IP certification. There's a lot of, of stuff to love within both these devices. But I definitely do like the XS Max. I think having that OLED display is definitely going to make that thing look so much better over, the iPhone 11 in this particular situation. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. Now, another very big thing is how both these phones kind of compare to each other against the competition like nowadays. Both these phones are missing out on like ProMotion displays or 120Hz displays. Both these phones do not have any sort of frosted glass backs. These phones don't have any like triple camera setups or USB Type-C or anything like that. So both these phones are also missing out on a lot of things nowadays, but that's just, those are just a few things. It's not a big deal, but those are just a few things right there. When it comes down to the price tag though, in the used market, what's interesting is both these phones are like roughly around the same price in the used market. So if you're going to pick up one over the other one, you might actually see that both of these are roughly around the same price, around that $200 price tag, which once again, that in of itself is a very, very interesting thing. So being able to go through once again and be able to pick up these phones for that price is pretty insane. So you probably wouldn't expect, that to happen, but it is what it is. So overall, when you kind of look at it, I definitely do think that both these phones, from a price tag standpoint, from the exterior, they hold up well, but again, the XS Max is definitely the winner here. When it comes down to the cameras, like I said before, both are giving you dual camera setups here. However, they are slightly different. So with the iPhone XS Max, you're getting a 12 megapixel wide angle camera, and then you're getting a 12 megapixel telephoto lens on the iPhone XS Max. Whereas on the iPhone 11, you're basically going through and getting a 12 megapixel wide angle camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. So that right there is already like a little bit of a difference because you're going from a telephoto lens to an ultra wide camera. Now, which camera do I think is better? Well, me personally, I almost always prefer having some sort of like, ultra wide camera over a telephoto lens. I think a telephoto lens is great and it's good and it gets the job done, but I've always felt like I prefer ultra wide cameras because you can kind of get away with not having a telephoto lens, but getting that 0.5x there is really, really nice to have. And that is something that's going to be giving you that type of capability on the iPhone, 11. So that right there can be a, big advantage for you. So if you're going to go through and pick up a device, I would say the iPhone 11 might be giving you a little bit of an edge there, but also when it comes down to the resolutions, like the iPhone 11 can film in 4K at 60 frames per second on the front and the back between both, whereas on the iPhone XS Max can do 1080p at 60 on the front and 4K at 60 on the back. So that right there can be an advantage for you depending on how you're looking at it. So once again, not the biggest deal in the world, but if you're comparing it from a camera standpoint, that might be one thing you're going to be taking a look at. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to its software longevity, right now, both these devices are still supported with software, right? But there's a chance with the iPhone XS Max, it may not be supported for that long, because right now it is the oldest supported iPhone on this version of software. So there is a pretty high chance where the iPhone XS Max is probably going to get discontinued probably this year. Maybe it'll get one more version of iOS from what we're seeing, but if not, it's still going to be there. So right now we could probably say it's on iOS 18 forever. If that is the case, then this iPhone is pretty much ending very soon. But if that's not the case, well then you could go through and still use this type of device probably for like another, year or so and still be okay. But the iPhone 11 has the highest chance of lasting for a longer period of time. That iPhone has the chance of basically lasting until like another year, maybe it'll last until next year. So there is a chance where that could happen, and if that were to happen, then that'd be a pretty big deal. But again, we really don't know. But I would say, if I were to go for one, the iPhone 11 would probably be the one that's going to last for a longer period of time when it comes down to it. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to their batteries, this is another interesting thing to keep in mind here. So when you take a look at both, the iPhone 11 is going to be giving you a 3,110 mAh battery, the XS Max 3,174 mAh battery. So even from a battery life standpoint, you're pretty much going to be getting similar size batteries between both, although the iPhone XS Max is still a little bit bigger. They're relatively almost the exact same thing. So it's funny, even though the 11 is much smaller, it's giving you basically the same size battery as the XS Max. And finally, when it comes down to the performance, the XS Max had the Apple A12 Bionic chip inside with 4GB of RAM, where the iPhone 11 had the Apple A13 Bionic chip inside with 4GB of RAM. So a little tiny bit of a difference there when it comes down to it as well. But I will tell you, when it comes down to the whole entire performance side, both of their performance levels are pretty good. I've always felt like even with the iPhone 11, that performance was really good. Same thing with the XS Max. But I would probably say when it comes down to it from the performance side, you're really not going to be noticing like too many differences here. I feel like I said before, both these phones give you really good performance. They give you really good capability. If I'm going to pick up one device, it probably would be the iPhone 11 because it is giving you a newer chipset, better capability in some ways as well from the performance side. So that has to go for something. But I think the XS Max is still good enough for the most part. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I will definitely tell you is that I like both these devices, right? I like the iPhone 11 and I like the XS Max. But I do think if I'm going to go through and pick up one, it probably would be the XS Max, right? If I had to use a phone for another year, it probably would be that phone just because it's more of a flagship. But I do think if I had the option to, I would probably go through and upgrade to something else, right? I don't think either one of these phones are great options. I think an iPhone 11 Pro might probably be a better option for some people. The 11 Pro just costs a little bit more money, and that's probably an iPhone I'd recommend buying. Or if you have even more money to spend, buy an iPhone 13 Pro. That device would be such a killer phone. It's not even that much. It's probably like twice the price of an iPhone, 11, but it's so much more worth buying than these devices, to be honest. So that's kind of how I see both these devices kind of holding up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.